so that we could welcome, are they on, Jim? Steve Weber and his life partner, Kathy. Welcome.
Thank you very much. A pleasure to be here.
We're so happy that you said yes to my friend request.
See where it led?
Yes, on Facebook. Thank you, Steve.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Let's start out with your story about your motorcycle accident. Where were you? How long ago was it?
It was about 4 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's been recent. It's recent.
Yes, and I'm still recovering.
Yeah.
Every day, better and better.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to get up every day with all the challenges. But life is good and people are good, even when sad things or bad things happen. And that's the message that Kathy and I have here today, that our life is about experiences and learning from those experiences. If I were to tell a little bit about the accident that day, myself and my ex-wife, we were at the end of our relationship. It was apparent to ourselves and everyone in our lives that we weren't meant for each other.
Were you in community? Not that I'm being personal, but
Yes.
were you aware of that? Were you talking about that?
We had future plans to go our separate ways. We had children who were soon to be graduating from high school.
Wow.
And our goal was just to keep the peace. It's not that we argued. She's a wonderful person. It's just that we were just very different
grew
the way
apart.
that we saw life, and it happens sometimes. It's not that you don't care for each other and your children. Obviously not your children. You love your children, and that's why we wanted to keep things together until they graduated and started their own lives and go off to college. And so one of the things we would do every once in a while would take a ride out east to go to a barbecue place on the motorcycle. I've been riding motorcycles all my life since I was a little tyke. 7 years old, I bought my first little mini bike. I had a circular route, and ever since then, I just loved the motorcycles. And so we had rode out east for lunch on a Sunday afternoon, and then on the way back, there was a lot of traffic. There was some sort of emergency road work. I had this big, heavy motorcycle, and we were waiting in traffic, and it was just it was a very tough situation. I saw up ahead that there was a right-hand turn, and people were going on the side of the road to make that right-hand turn to get out of traffic. And so after waiting there for like a half hour, that's what I did. It was a very foolish thing to do, but I wanted to get out of traffic. And so as I approached the intersection, getting ready to make a right-hand turn, the gentleman who was on the other lane, he made a space, and someone came in and made a left-hand turn.
Because they were trying to get out of traffic as well.
And smacked sideways into me.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
My whole body took on this side of my body, it met the truck directly. And I was thrown from the motorcycle. And my ex-wife, she was also thrown from the motorcycle, but she wasn't hit. Anytime you get thrown from a motorcycle, it's
traumatic.
It's traumatic.
Yeah. Because you're being thrown and you're landing, and that's got to be what is it
Impact.
An impact. That's it.
Exactly.
Thank you, Jim. An impact.
And the lights went out. And then the next things I remember, I was laying on the ground, and it felt like time had passed because an emergency worker was over me administering first aid, and I tried to get up, and he was saying no, but I felt as soon as I tried to get up, my leg wasn't connected anymore. I felt the fragments of the bone in my hip, and then the lights went out again, and the next thing I saw...
When you say the lights went out, you're saying you blacked out?
Yeah, I went unconscious. Okay. That's Steve speak.
Well, that's okay. But I understand it because I'm in your world, but I just wanted to make sure that our audience understood exactly what you meant when the lights went out.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
blacked out,
Blacked
and
out.
you don't remember anything.
And then the next things I remember I was rising off the ground. And I was looking down, and I saw the scene below me. I saw all the traffic that was backed up for miles. I'm sure the people must have been thrilled. And it was backed up for miles, and I was raising up to the clouds. And I thought, obviously, that something unreal was happening. But then I started coming down from the clouds. And then I looked down, and I recognized Stony Brook Hospital. I was in a helicopter. And I was landing at Stony Brook Hospital.
Wow.
And I remember, I didn't realize it then that I was dying. But I was looking around, and I started to become separated from the world. And I realized life was never going to be the same again. And then I blacked out. And that was the last time I was here for 3 weeks that I was in a coma. But while I was in that coma, I lived a lifetime. I had many more experiences than I experienced here on earth. And those experiences were the most valuable, the things that I learned. I was 0 on the spirituality scale, 0. I was a person of the 4 walls of getting ahead in life and in a monetary sense. And I was very much involved in community service. That was a big part of my life.
Yes, I know you were.
But spirituality.
But you weren't connected to the charitable work you were doing. You were just doing it because it appeared. Am I correct?
No.
Okay.
I love the charitable.
You were connected to?
No,
Okay.
I
He
felt
was
it.
deeply
But
connected to
Okay.
but I was a humanist,
Okay.
not a spiritualist. And
Okay.
that's a spiritualist and a humanist can be one person.
Right.
But I was definitely a humanist. I loved. In fact, it was almost like a guilty pleasure. Anytime that I did things in a community thing, I felt such a sense of happiness and bliss. It really brought
Right.
me,
And
I
you did that
kind
for
of felt
many,
guilty.
many years, right?
Yeah, a long time. It was just very meaningful to me. I suffered a traumatic brain injury. I broke my spine. I have
gosh.
metal in my spine.
Oh my God.
You're a miracle to be sitting here.
Well, the doctor said when reviewing my case, he said usually this is an autopsy report. And my hip was completely shattered. They had to put all these pins in it, and the doctor said it was just a couple of years earlier, the outcome would have been very differently. I broke my leg, I broke my arm, I broke my ribs, everything on this side, and it was quite an effort to rehabilitate. But the rehabilitation was a joy. It really was.
Because you were back.
It was well, yes, but also it was that every morning I woke up. And in my mind, as I knew I was going to get better today, I was going to be better at the end of the day than I was at the start of the day.
Right.
Isn't that was just so fulfilling for me.
And positive thoughts
Yeah.
are very important in healing.
Well, you manifest your own reality. And manifestation is the intention. And that's where it starts.
So where did you get that intention? I know you talk. Your book is called "The Place Between Here and There."
Yes.
Right. So we're talking about the place between here and there. You crossed over. You experienced 3 weeks in a coma. Living on the other side. Your soul was on the other side, and then you came back, and now you have this intention. Where did you get that intention from?
Well, let me speak to it. It was the place between here and there, and I wasn't where we go when we pass. I was in a place between where we are now and where our eventual destination is. And I don't know, I'm learning why I was there, but let me explain it a little bit and some of the lessons that I learned, and perhaps we can go from there. Is that you mentioned time. In this other place, there is no time in the way that we see it. Because what is time? Time is here is that people get old. Plants grow, the sun sets and falls, and plants grow. There's time all around us. There, those things don't happen. There, the only measurement of time is your experiences and your awareness and your growth through those experiences. If you're not growing, time isn't passing, it stands still. If you're growing, time moves rapidly. And in that place, for me,
mine speeds by.
Say that again.
in that place for me, there were 3 places that ran every day. The first place is where I learned the language of the universe. They were starting from a 0. I had no spirituality. Besides, I'm a Catholic, and I take my Catholic faith very seriously. I didn't make my confirmation until I was 50 years old.
Wow.
My Catholic
You knew,
faith.
you took it as because you wanted to.
It was a faith.
It was a faith.
It was a faith. But now this experience, it destroyed my faith in the sense that I know it's so. It's not a faith anymore. I know what the Christ consciousness is.
That's so funny because when people say they believe, I say I know.
Yeah.
Because we know, I guess because we experience the same
Yes,
type of
yes.
thing, that we know it to be true, where people only believe. There's a big difference in believing
Yes.
and knowing.
I could
and
see
I'm
that.
certain of that. And so the first place is where I learned the language of the universe. The second place is I learned how to apply. I was tested, which I failed miserably at. And then
How do you feel you were tested?
let me explain that. And then the final place was where I contemplated what had happened and I meditated on it and I drew my lessons from it. And so these ran in sequence. In the beginning, the first place I spent most of my time. Towards the middle, the second place I spent most of my time. And towards the end, I spent most of my time there. And it was only 3 weeks, but in my mind, like I said, it was a lifetime. So in the first place is that I didn't know that anything was going on. It was very deeply rooted in my life here. I'm a computer guy. And so I was in this place where I was working on people's computers. I was solving their computer problems. But the problems I was solving really had nothing to do with computers.
Computer.
That was just the stage that was set. And the first thing I learned is I saw people from my life who I was working with. And I recognized them as themselves. And then what happened is that I began to see them as old people. I began to see them as young people, but I was still able to recognize them as that.
Right.
And still, I didn't know anything was going on. It kind of like everything just kind of fit into one another. And then I saw men as women, not men dressed in drag, but men who were really, their incarnation was as a woman, and women who their incarnation was as a man. And what I was being taught was, how did I recognize these people when their forms changed? I was seeing the spirit in them. I was being identified. I was learning that part of ourself that has nothing to do with being a man or a woman or a mother or a father. I was learning about the infinite self inside each of us and having to recognize that in people. And that's what was being shown to me, is by seeing people in different forms, how do I know them? I began to see the spirit, and that's what I see the spirit now in people, in you and Kathy and all of us, all the people I meet. That's the first things I see. I see the spirit. Now, once I was armed, once I was enlightened by being able to see the spirit in people, then I reflected on my life, all of the experiences that I had in life, and all of a sudden things, like things that happened on the school ground, things that happened in relationship. Now when I could see the spirit in the individuals, those situations took on new meaning. They really weren't about what was going on. It was about something else. There's a reason why people are there. There's a reason why people are learning things. Mm-hmm. And that's when I learned that your experiences are so valuable. You can't take it with you. The only thing you could take with you is your experiences, right. And those are the most valuable. And each time I reviewed my life through those experiences, through being able to see the spirit,
right.
That was when I learned and grew. And that's the meaning of life, is to learn those experiences. And so once this went on for quite a long time, I began to feel the spirit in everything, in people, in plants, in animals. All of a sudden I realized that everything has a spirit.
Right.
Once I was able to learn that, once I began to see the spirit in people, and I learned that everything had a spirit, I began to realize this one critical fact, at least for me, is that we're all part of the same creation. Mm-hmm. We are all one. We are all connected. Everybody is connected. And I began to learn that the Creator and the creation are one. When they say God is everywhere, is that everything is God. We are part of it. We are all connected in spirit. Next task is, once I learned this, I was in, next place I was in a bar in Key West. Yes, I was a
Sounds
manager.
Good.
Well, it was an environment that I was not unfamiliar with at the time. And I was there to show these children how to be bar backs and how to run the place. And then I was standing before the bar owner and his wife. And I would meet with them, and then I'd have to show the kids how to do things. And the kids would scatter. and I was failing. I was trying to show them how to be involved in it, and I would stand before the bar owner each day, and we'd set what we needed to do, and the kids would scatter, and I couldn't communicate with them. And the bar owner had his wife there, and she was very upset all the time, and she was praying if I didn't know any better, and that she seemed to look at me with such pity and concern in her eyes, and I just didn't know.
Why? Because the children weren't paying attention to
I
you?
didn't
or?
know.
Okay.
I didn't know. But what I began to learn is that when I looked at that person, is that I felt their grace. I felt everything that they were involved with in their life, and they were okay with it. They lived many, many things, but they felt good about it. And I learned.
Who felt good about it? The kids?
The bar owner
The
felt,
bar owner.
even though terrible things had happened. And that's when I learned that about grace, and about I was to bestow that same grace, my knowledge, how I felt about my life on the kids.
Yes.
And I later learned that the kids may not have been kids. They may have been spirits that are yet to have a human experience. And so there's so much more.
But they were the players.
Yes.
In what you needed to learn.
Yes. And I failed at that because I wasn't able to commit them.
Well, Kathy
until.
and I were talking about it before, that there's no failure in life.
So then
right?
many things happened, more things than I could explain in our short time together. But finally, when I've had all these experiences and I learned from many, many things, I learned many lessons. I learned that we're all connected. I learned that life is about experiences. I learned that life is good and people are good, and even when very sad things happened. I learned that we're all connected. I learned that there's one universal God, a creator, and we're the creator and the creation are one.
Right.
I learned that your experiences are most valuable, so don't have any hate or animosity towards those people who bring you negative experiences
Right.
in life,
Right.
because those are the things that you learn most often.
Right.
And so when I woke up,
And learn one other thing. You learn that in life, sometimes you're the teacher and sometimes
You're the
you're
student.
being taught.
and that's a very good point, because
Yes, so
that's
that-
what I learned with the kids, is that I learned from the bar owner, and I was supposed to teach the children, but in many ways I didn't feel I was worthy to teach the children.
Right.
And that was very important, because that comes into play later on why I didn't share this experiences, because I didn't feel that way.
Yeah.
And so in many ways that was preparing me to have this life lesson. But one thing I learned is that when I woke up, I was tied down in a bed in a intensive care unit.
They didn't want you moving.
Yeah, and I had tubes in my throat, and I couldn't speak, and it was a shocking experience, and it was a shocking experience, and I was sitting there, I was reviewing things, but then I came to the realization who that girl, that lady, that bar owner's wife was. And I wanted to contact that person, because that I heard them praying, and I felt their compassion and their love. I
Right.
didn't realize, I thought it was them being critical of me. And so all I wanted to do was to contact this person. And I was just waiting for them to take the tubes out of me. And as soon as they did, I wanted my cell phone. I asked my family for my cell phone. As soon as I got my cell phone, I picked up my phone, and I saw it was a different phone, but all my contacts, the phone must have been damaged in the accident.
yes.
And so I saw all the contacts there, and then I wanted this person to know that I knew stuff about things. I wanted to share my experience with,
Right,
because
right.
I saw this, and I sent this person a text.
That was me.
Okay, so you were married to the bar owner?
In that place.
In that
I
pla-
was.
in the
I mean,
that
I don't
place.
have any awareness of this because I wasn't there. But when I was here on earth and I was praying for him.
Oh, so I didn't understand. I didn't catch. I don't know if
Yes,
you
no,
caught.
I
But
understood.
how did he know
Wait.
you?
I just want to clarify for our audience, because I just want to. So this was in your in the other side, that you were dreaming that you had Kathy was.
Not a dream, though.
Well, yes, but it wasn't reality because
It was a reality.
It was.
It is always a reality.
Yeah, Mom is
Yeah.
right, because that it's about duality, and your spirit doesn't go on hiatus when you're here. Your spirit is still there. And so that's one of the realizations I came to this place, is that, what was this in my mind? Was this a dream, or was it real?
It was
yes,
real.
It is
I
real.
I understand. So, I get it.
So in that reality, her spirit was that lady, the owner of
Yes,
that
I
bar.
understand.
Right, and
that
they
Mom
and
is
he
right.
and he met her.
And he
Yes.
he knew her
Yes.
from there.
So where?
Yeah,
How
because
was she?
I've learned
How
this-
did what? Just asking, so everybody
yeah.
understands, because I'm just got to be the facilitator of the show. That because I got to make my audience understand. Like,
Yeah.
okay, so you
Interpreter.
right. So you got your phone, and how did you have her phone number?
Because we were friends. Kathy's going to tell this part, but
Okay.
but when we had been friends for over a decade, 15 years
Almost
at
2
that
decades,
time.
yeah.
Okay.
But and I'd like her to tell that part. But the reason why I knew it was her, because that the universe had, in the first place, where I saw people's spirits, I was able to recognize their spirits. The universe taught me how to see spirit. Now, when I saw that lady, and now I woke up, I recognized that spirit in the same way man was a woman, old, young, everything. I was still able to see the spirit. Now, when I thought of that lady, I saw the spirit, and that spirit was Kathy.
Right. So Kathy, tell us the
Well,
rest.
Steve and I have been friends for a long time, because I had moved to Kings Park. I met him on a hiking bike trail, walking the dogs. We exchanged greetings, and we turned out that we both had daughters the same age. And he was just Mr. Mayor in the town. He was on the
Yes.
school board. He was on Angels Without
Yes,
Faces.
I know
He
that.
was in the Community Heritage Museum. I had a Girl Scout troop, and he kind of could fill every role for my troop. If I needed a hiking badge, he'd take us hiking to the site center. If I needed
Okay.
a government badge, he'd introduce us to government officials. So in that time, we became friends, and we even started a community service group together. So, and it was a very sacred friendship. It lasted a long time. We've been through a lot together. We became confidants, telling each other about each other's problems. And we had mutual friends. And it was a sacred friendship, and I said that because I trusted him.
Right.
You know, he was a guy, but he never hit on me. He wasn't inappropriate.
Right.
So I felt safe.
Right.
So we could
Which
maintain this friendship.
which actually built for
Yeah.
the next phase
Yeah.
in your lives.
Yeah, so then when I got that call from his cousin, who's one of my best friends, that he had been in a motorcycle accident, and she was like, Kath, he's in a coma. Not sure if he was going to make it. Then my heart like sunk. I
Right.
was like,
Right.
how could this be? He seemed larger than life to me, because, as you know, being such a pillar in the community, he meant a lot to a lot of people. I knew what he meant to
Right.
the community. I knew what he
I
meant
knew
to his
he-
family.
I had him speak at the Rotary Club.
Yeah, he meant a lot to a lot of people. So it was like
Oh, you had him speak at the
unfathomable.
Rotary Club
Yeah,
before
when I was-
he had his.
Yeah, before,
okay.
years
Yeah,
before.
he did
I
so
I
much.
heard about his community work. I was president of the Comet Kings Park Rotary, and I invited him to speak. And he also spoke when
you
Andrew
had
was.
said to me you had him speaking. I thought he was speaking about this particular.
No,
so it
he
was
talking
prior
about his
to.
community.
Okay.
That's
Just
why it
trying
was-
to put the pieces together. That's all.
That's why it was so unusual that you found him.
Yeah.
And when I found out his last name, I said, "Didn't you live in Kings Park?"
Well, that's a testimony to God, that God can make anything happen.
Synchronicity.
Yeah.
Synchronicity. I mean,
And-
anything happen.
And I knew about you. You talked
Yeah.
about the community service when you even went to the Smithtown Sunrise Rotary.
So, Kathy, continue. I'm so sorry.
All right, so where was I now? So we had this beautiful friendship, and then Lisa called me and said he had been in an accident, and like I said, it was just unfathomable to me that this person, larger than life, could perish. Like, how could that affect people, his family, his community, his kids?
Right.
So I was like, whew, I didn't know what to do. I couldn't go to the hospital because I'm not next to kin, and he was in ICU. So my experience in the past had been that I always felt very connected to spirit, to God, to saints, to angels, and I would have conversation. I would get validation back. And then when my mother suddenly passed and my twin brother suddenly passed, I did a lot of reading about near-death experience because I needed to know more. That's when you really soul search, when you need to know.
When you have that
When that grief.
yes.
So then when I did all that reading, and it just, everything came together to me that spirit is communicating to us. And I learned to communicate to my brother and my mother. And I also learned that when in a coma, that spirit is not in the physical body, but it's in a place where it's even more cognizant and aware in spirit, because spirit is so much bigger than what we are here, that I could talk to him.
Right.
So-
From where you were.
From where I was.
Right.
So I would say every day, I say, Steve, I can't go to the hospital
Right.
because I'm not family, but I want you to pretend that I'm in the hospital room with you. I'm holding your hand, and we're praying to St. Jude, who's this saint that
Right, this-
like
yes.
really
Yes, yes.
corresponds to me.
Yes.
And I did this every day, day after day. Steve, I'm in the hospital. We're sitting together praying to St. Jude. I need you to come back. Your family needs you to come back. Your kids need you to come back. Your wife, like I was praying for his wife at the time because
Right.
they were married.
Because that's the right.
Yeah.
They were doing the right
Yeah,
thing. You
and we were
you
just
weren't
friends.
right. You weren't looking to intrude on his
No.
personal
No.
relationship. You really had the best intention
Yeah.
that you wanted his soul and his spirit and
Absolutely.
everything about him to heal.
Yeah.
To heal.
And I wanted to keep my friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I did that every day, and like a week went by, 2 weeks went by, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this at this point there could be brain damage, there could be irreversible. He might not come back. I mean, it was so horrifying. But then I got that phone call from his cousin, Steve is okay, and I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. So she said he wants to talk to you. So that night I'm just like, yay, I can't wait for this call, and
right.
it
Right.
took forever to come, so I was like, forget it, I'll just go to bed. And then I lay down, and then all of a sudden I hear a buzz on my cell phone, and it says text message from Steve Weber. And I was like, yay! So I
Right.
pick up the phone, and he says, hi Kath, it's Steve, I'm okay. I just want to thank you for visiting me when I was quote unquote out, if you know what I mean. And I was like, wow. So, I mean, I knew that communication was possible,
Right.
but it's just that when you communicate with spirit of someone that passed over, you'll get signs back, you'll get synchronicities, but they're there. So you can always chalk that up to, coincidence. But when someone comes back and says that they heard you, that's like, whoa.
Wow.
So I was like shaking, like, yay. And then I texted him back and I said, you mean you know? And he said, let's just say I've been to a place where I know that everyone is connected, but that you and I have a connection that goes beyond this world. And I heard your prayers, and I thank you. And I've learned a lot of things. And please visit me in the hospital so I can tell you.
Wow, that's incredible. And those are the types of things that we want our audience to tap into. That there is hope. That
Always communicate.
communicate to the other side, and that's one of the things that I always watch the movie War Room. Do you ever watch the movie War Room? How it teaches you to do exactly what you need to do, to go internally, talk to them, have faith, to pray for them, and things will manifest and work
The
out.
thing that's hard, and this is the hardest thing of it all, is when you have that grief, it just brings your spirit down, and the lower your spirit is, the harder it is to communicate, because past spirit or saints, they're all this high. And when you're at that different vibration, it's hard to connect.
Right.
So only when you bring up your joy and
Right.
you live your best life is it easy to connect. And that's what they want to see from you. When someone passes on, they don't want to see you crying and
Right.
grieving. They want to see you happy because they love you.
Right, right.
So-
So that's why they come back, and they try to come back. And I was watching Long Island Medium. You know, I watch
yes,
her once in a while.
I love
that. That's what their purpose is. A medium is to connect those to the other side when you can't. You and I can. I know my mom and Judy and Steve. You can. We can connect to the other side.
Right.
We can hear them. We can. But some people aren't that open. Some people don't know how. So people like Teresa, or my friend Teresa.
Teresa.
From Elmwood Park. She's one of my friends. that's their purpose in life. Their purpose in life is to talk to the other side, to bring hope, because that's what their mission is, to let you know that they're okay, they're safe, they're happy.
And we've actually gone to psychics after the experience and gotten validations from them that were just so mind-blowing and comforting, and that's why sharing it is wonderful, because we see the pain in other people, and when we tell our story, because there's so much more to the story than this,
But Steve is writing a book. Is it going to all be in the
It'll
book?
all
Kathy and
be in
Steve.
there.
Kathy
Both
and
of us.
Steve. Okay.
It'll be in there, because there's synchronicities with saints with us after the experience, and how he comes to believe in spirit, because he was still skeptical after the accident.
Well, that's an important point, is because for a long time, as I felt it was the drugs, and that I had this experience, I didn't realize the true meaning of things. And it was through talking to Kathy that helped me understanding. But it was through grief that helped me to understand it. And it wasn't from grief from the accident. It was about 6 months after the accident. My beautiful 20-year-old son, honor student, star wrestler, I found him dead in my basement
Oh my God, that's got to be.
My,
from a drug overdose.
Oh no.
my goodness.
It was the most
Horrific.
devastating.
The words cannot even go there. Words cannot
And-
even go there.
And it was through this experience
How
that
far after that was that? I mean, when was that in
about
this timeline?
6 months.
6 months after your accident.
Yeah, a little
Okay.
bit longer
I'm just
than
saying.
that,
I'm just
yeah.
trying to figure it out when it was.
But I was getting better, and I was so focused on my recovery that I put the whole experience out of my mind. And then Kathy and I, especially after I lost my son, she would go hiking with me, and this was at the time she was getting a divorce from her husband, and I was, prior to losing my son, I was getting a divorce from my wife at the time, and so we were really becoming closer, talking about life and things. And then shortly after that, she said to me, "Did you ever try to talk to your son?" And I thought she was out of her mind. I really did. I thought she was out of her mind. And it was from us starting to discuss my son that we started to come to certain realizations about synchronicities, about Saint Teresa. And Kathy, can you talk to that just a little bit?
I don't know how much time we have, but I'll try to make it quick.
I have a shrine of statues. My
Yeah.
mother just gave me 3 last night.
We on our property,
so-
we have statues with lights all over the place.
We have to meet up because I have so many in my house. So go ahead. I don't want to hold us
All
back.
right, so
Jim, how long do you have? About 7 minutes.
Well, you can go to a quarter after. If you
Okay.
want
Wow.
to. It's up to you.
All right, he was very skeptical, and that maddened me, because after the experience that we had communicating between heaven and earth, he still didn't believe that spirituality was existing, and that we could communicate with spirit. And I was just like, how do you not know? We did it. If
That's
we
right,
Did it, then
right.
how do
That's
you-"
right.
But he
Right.
just still was thick-headed. So when I asked him if he heard from his son, because I heard from my mother, my brother, and I would tell him about this, and he'd always, "Oh, that's nothing. That's just coincidence. Oh, that's your active imagination." So I was like, "No, you need to believe." So I made it my mission to convince him. So I would tell him about my experiences, and that didn't work. So then his cousin Lisa, my friend, went to a psychic to talk to her grandma. And she sits down, and the psychic immediately says, "There's a Nick here. Do you know this name?" And Lisa's like, "Yeah,
That was his son.
yeah." And Lisa's son and his son were the same age. They played football together. They grew up together in the same town. They had a beautiful relationship. And the psychic said, "Okay, Nick is putting numbers on the wall. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. And he's circling 1, 2, he's circling 2, 3, and he's circling 5, 6. Do you know what that is?" So Lisa says, "I know what 2, 3, and 5, 6 are, because Nick was 23 on the football team. Victor was 56, and they stood next to each other on the defensive line. So when you were looking down the line, you saw
That's
2,
what you
3,
saw.
5, 6.
Right.
Michael
So-
Jordan and Lawrence Taylor's
Yeah.
number.
And then she said, "Well, what's the 1, 2? And she's like, 1, 2, I don't know what that is. So she called me. Now I got to backtrack just a second to give you some info. Is right at the anniversary of his son's passing, I found red roses everywhere I went for 5 days. I found them at
Wow.
parks, at the Fire Island Lighthouse, and I was like, Steve, there's something to this rose thing. Like, the last time I found items on successive days was when my brother passed, and he sent me a message. I think Nick is sending us a message, and he's like, no. He goes, roses, you can find roses anywhere. People get married, they take pictures, they leave roses behind. They don't do that on 5
Right,
days in a row.
right.
You know, like, there's something to this. And he was like, you're just, crazy. So then when Lisa talked to the psychic, and he circled in 1, 2, Lisa called me and said, what's 1, 2? And I said, that's the day Nick passed. I mean, that's his birthday, I'm sorry. His birthday was 1, 2.
Wow.
So the psychic is like, because he's saying he has a synchronicity with Saint Teresa, and that's her birthday.
Wow.
And he said he's sending the roses.
Well, Saint Teresa,
Came-
the roses.
The little
Yeah,
flower.
so Nick
Yes, the little
said to
flower.
the psychic that he has a synchronicity with Saint Teresa, and he's sending the roses. They have the same birthday. He said he's sending the roses. So I was like, yes, Steve's going to believe me now because this was validated,
Right.
right?
Right.
So I tell him, and he's like,
I think all the saints and Saint Teresa is in my bedroom as well.
Yeah.
She's a huge.
Beautiful,
I think that's why we
beautiful
all came
saint.
together today. Was a
Yeah.
lot of these saints and.
So he
Synchronicity.
didn't believe me. So I was like, you know what? I don't care. I'm making a shrine to Nick in a park with the Saint Teresa statue because she is saying that they have a synchronicity. They're sending roses.
Right.
So we're
Right.
going to honor that.
Right.
So I create this shrine with him. We find a beautiful location. I get a Saint Teresa statue, and he's placating me like, "Okay, Cap, I'll do this," but it doesn't really mean anything. And we write a little memorial to Nick Weber. And as we're driving there one day, a friend of mine gave us rosary beads to put at the shrine, and they came with a bio of Saint Teresa. So I'm reading the bio to him, and it's like her birthday was January 2nd, and she's canonized on May 17th. And I was like, Steve, you're not going to believe this. Her canonization day and Nick's passing day are the same day.
Wow.
So not only do they have the same birthday, but they share something with the death anniversary.
Right.
So I was like, Steve, let's review this now.
Right.
Yes.
Nick said he's sending the roses, and he has a synchronicity with Saint Teresa. They have the same birthday. He passed on her canonization day. Do you believe maybe now that
Right.
this is real? And he's like, well, maybe there's something to it.
What do you
that's
think
good.
was the what am I words I'm looking for? What we think was the delay? What I think was the holdback in your
Yes, Steve.
acknowledging it? No, because I understand it. I'll tell you why. Because when I was like Steve is fresh. Steve has only been 4 years from his trauma. You know, I mean, I've been 30 years. So, and
Wow.
as you grow, you will recover and get more in tune with your purpose and what you're doing. Thank you, Kathy, for working with him. But I remember being so up here in the spiritual world. That's why I said, like, a lot of guardian angels, I call them, helped me to balance myself, especially Dominic Cortellessa, who actually taught me to put my feet on the ground to speak the language and to be able to listen and not be so in a hurry. See, we live in this fast-paced, we live in their time zone, which is not a time zone, which is like, we did so much on the other side, or in your place that you were, that we didn't understand time. So I can understand him, like, not even listening to what you're saying or getting it, because we're like 20 miles ahead of you. We're like living like in another zone. So you had to kind of like, in your kind and generous and soft way, keep engaging him to understand. So my question to you, Steve, is: do you understand yet what was the delay in your?
Yeah, what the delay was is that I was of this world, and that these things were coincidental. At that time, I was extremely logical. I'm a computer guy, and so I'm very logical. Things, you do this, this happens.
But
And-
that was before your experience.
But at this time is that I wasn't reflecting on that experience in that way. It was just the drugs. That was it. It was just the drugs to me. But, and even after, Kathy says that that even when we found out St. Teresa's synchronicities with Nick, it was the death day and the canonization day that all of a sudden made me take notice that this is extremely odd. I mean, extremely odd. And Kathy and I at this time had become very close. I mean, we were still friends at this time, and we're more than friends now. But we were still friends at this time, and I just, I just wasn't sure. But things were starting to change. I was starting to think of things. And then that night, when I went to sleep, I had this dream. I had this dream that my son was with me.
Wow.
And real people often have these dreams when someone passes. And I felt him. I felt it was so real. It felt like all this thing was just a terrible nightmare. And it really did. It felt like this was just a terrible nightmare. And I was so sure he was with me. And then when I woke up, I realized it was just a dream. But I felt good.
But it wasn't a dream. Like you said before, it was a reality.
I felt good, yes.
Yes.
I felt like it's going to be okay, that he's okay, that he was in the
Yes.
place that I was in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there was a door there that the bar owner stood in front of that I never went through. And I saw that door, that perhaps he walked through that door. And now he's back with his eternal self. And he's become part of the universe and part of God and everything who we are. And all of a sudden, my grief left me. It did. It left me in such a big way. It all of a sudden, it was okay. I love my son. I miss my son. I had so many plans. He had such a bright future. But it's okay now. He was where I was, and life is good.
When you're thinking about grief, we always think about crying. And when there is love, that real love, that doesn't have any end or beginning, then there cannot be grief. Because that love will support us and fill us with so much energy that you will not grieve. You will be happy.
That's exactly the way I felt. No, you understand. I know. I see you. You understand these things. No, in such a real way. Your mom, she knows.
Well, she has experienced,
Yes.
many things in her life, beginning with that car accident. That was the beginning of her journey to, spiritualism and understanding. Am I correct?
Yes.
So
She's real.
I know. Thank you.
Like I'm telling you.
But what I just want to make our audience, because we only have a couple more minutes, and this, I can tell you how grateful I am to have all of you here today, because like I said, this is really an important,
And the synchronicities that brought us all
Yes.
together
Yes.
today, like Judy was
Yes.
saying, this wasn't
Yes.
supposed to happen.
this was supposed
It
to
was
happen.
supposed. Yeah, you're right.
But what I wanted people to understand is why you had started to connect with the other side in your dreams and in your coma, was because Kathy has the my mother says, let it flow. You have the openness all the time. You keep that channel open to the other side all the time, and you're at peace, and you have no blockages to not allow the other side to come in, right? And when you're sleeping, you're kind of in a peaceful Netherlands. And when you're in a coma, the same thing. So maybe that place between here and there is that peaceful, calm place that we all need to engage in life to experience the other side, to be able to experience that.
Yeah, I think you're very right. And what I think is everybody goes through that. I guess when I was growing up, they would call it purgatory, but purgatory was to punish
Right,
you.
and I remember that as well, because I'm a
but-
Catholic
but-
as well.
But no. It's more like an adjustment period from your incarnation to spiritual. There's like a transition that takes place, and I think that's what it is. I think everybody experiences that, and that's knowing that my son was there and that he has gone on to his eternal self, the continuation of consciousness. That's what brought me peace, and it's not about grief. It's about love, and that love is forever.
Mm-hmm.
Your experiences. Your love is what you take with you. You can't take your money. You can't take your car. You can't. That is what you take with you.
My mother and I were talking about that on the way in.
Yes.
How, your material things in life could be ripped out of you in 2 seconds. If God doesn't want you to have it, it's not yours anymore.
It's never yours.
Right, and that's what I was just saying. The material things in life are only gifts, that we use at a particular time while we're here on earth, and they're
And it's
not
going
ours.
to be used by somebody else. Somebody
Yes.
else is going to own it.
Yeah.
Purgatory is simply understanding. Once we understand, we don't need to be in purgatory.
She's so right. No, that is so right. That is so true.
But purgatory,
It's the wrong word, but
It's
yes.
the
Well,
wrong
I
word.
mean, what does it mean? Do you know what purgatory actually, the description? I don't know. Jim's going to look on, that was going to look. Jim's going to look that up. Can you look that up for us, Jim?
I
Jim's
learned in
gonna look that up for us.
in catechism that it was like you weren't bad enough to go to
Yes,
the bad place,
yes.
but you weren't good enough to be with
But-
God. But you had to spend some time
but
here.
the
It's
truth
like a
is-
time
An
out.
adjustment.
I
Yeah,
think,
but no, that's
I
not
think
it.
we're the same age. I'm 56. Are you approximately 56?
Yeah, I'm a year older.
Okay. No, the only reason I'm asking you that is because I went to a Catholic school, St. Anthony's School, and we didn't learn the Bible. We learned catechism,
Yeah.
which catechism is the stories of the Bible, of stories of the Christian religion. So purgatory was one of the things that was spoken about. So I just want to know the exact, Jim, what is it?
Okay, here we go.
Can we hear you? Jim's going to give us.
Okay, it is a place or state of punishment wherein, according to Roman Catholic doctrine, the souls of those who die in God's grace may make satisfaction for past sins and so become fit for heaven.
So on
It's a
that note,
temporary.
I like
It's a
it.
place or state of temporary suffering or misery.
but what I want to invite you back. Will you guys
Definition.
come
It's
back?
definition.
I want to invite you back because I think we need to continue this conversation, especially about purgatory.
Yeah.
That it says it's a punishment. I
Yes,
mean
but
that's
that's not true.
that's not true.
Because
And
God wouldn't punish anybody.
right. And
Exactly.
to me, it's like I love the Catholic. I will always be a Catholic. I was raised a Catholic. I was,
Of course.
But and in my world, I believe that we're all brought to religion to connect to something to better our lives. That's my purpose. But no religion is better than any other religion. And to me, some of the Catholic, like they said, the Catholic doctrines. I mean, who made those doctrines?
Right.
Man-made,
Right.
right, Mom?
Probably.
Am I
yes.
correct? So those are the types of things that I want to talk about, like, because we're bigger than that. God is love.
Yes.
And he wants us to love each other, not fight each other, not go to war with each other, to love each other. Because when I was on the other side, that's what I was encompassed with love. It was so wonderful. It just was a joy.
Yeah.
And I understand what you were saying, Kathy, that we have to stay in that joy to be able to understand, to be able to gravitate and to be able to connect to other individuals and spirits in the world.
Yes, it's love, to give love, but also to learn to receive love.
Yes, I got to
It's
learn
both
that
of
one.
those. No, it's very true,
I know.
and it's been wonderful to be here with all of you. I mean, very, very, very. It's very meaningful to us. But our story is something that does require so much more time, and
Yes.
I wasn't we really didn't have enough time for me to go into details, explain about that place, because there's so much more to it.
Well, Kathy, Judy will book you.
Very
again,
well.
And
Yes.
we'll continue the conversation.
And then, but this October 26th
Okay.
at the Smithtown Historical Society,
Yes.
Brush Barn, we do a workshop where we mix music and mantras and meditation in with the story. And the workshop runs about 2 hours. Sometimes it's getting a little longer than that. But we're able to tell our whole story. And at the end, people don't want to leave. They want to stay and talk some more. And people write us letters saying how the story and the whole experience between Kathy and I and just everything, that it changes people's lives because it lets them know that it helps them with their grief. It lets them know that there's something else, and it's real. It's not even a faith. It's things that work here in the here and now, as well as any place that comes after. And so I urge, come and visit our workshop. It's a
And
beautiful.
all they have to do is give you a ring.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. It's on our Facebook, or you just search for the Brush Barn. It's October 26th. Beautiful Halloween setting on a beautiful farm, and
At what time?
it's at 7 p.m. 7 to 9
And the address
is
Well, it's the Smithtown Historical Society on Main Street.
yeah, it's
in
Main
Smith-
Street. It's
And
right-
give them the phone number, Steve.
All right,
I'll
wait.
give them the
Because on this press, you gave him your phone number. So
Yes.
if you
This
want to
is
give your
the-
phone number, give your phone number.
It's 631-560-8537. 631-560-8537. Send me a text. I mean, text is always, you always call me, but texts are even
Texts
better.
are good. Texts are just
And,
the information.
And I just, it's such a soul enriching experience, and we're using the money that we collect to publish our book. We've been working on a book about this experience, and one of our associates, our dear friend Shawnee, he's one of the musicians. He's working on an album that explains so much of what we're working on and the message, because it's all about the message. And we'd love to share with people and hear other people's experiences. Those are things that are so much more important, because in the end, we're all connected, we're all one.
Yeah, we are. That's a good way to end this show. Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.